2022 is almost over, and if you've watched my channel at all this year, you know that for the most part I put out weekly reviews for almost every show that came out this year that I've been following. So here's my ranking of every 2022 TV show that I watched, from worst to best. Now I know that technically Book of Boba Fett, which is on this list, started in 2021, but it started like the last week of that year, and the majority of it was in 2022, so I consider it a 2022 show. And there are also other shows or seasons that came out this year, like Wednesday Addams, Season 4 of Stranger Things, and Season 2 of Mysterious Benedict Society, and I haven't gotten around to finishing those yet, so those reviews will be out sometime over the next couple of months. And also, even though shows like Willow and National Treasure started this year, they don't end until early 2023, so those won't be on the list either. So with that in mind, let's get started. Coming at last place at number 9 is She-Hulk. Now, I didn't hate this show with a passion like a lot of people did, but it still wasn't good. The show's main problem was the writers were paranoid and insecure. They were so afraid of and sure that this show was going to get backlash from male trolls on the internet that they spent the majority of the show calling them out, even though backlash hadn't happened yet because the show didn't exist yet. They also teased that the show was going to have all sorts of cameos, with the biggest one being Daredevil, and when Daredevil finally does show up, they completely ruin him by having him hook up with She-Hulk. And a big part of the character of Daredevil is that he's a devout Catholic who goes to confession every week and feels conflicted that he's hurting people, but also feels good about bringing justice. It's his religious devotion that makes him an interesting character, and they completely threw that away. On top of that, the show is proud of the fact that it has a strong female character, which in and of itself is not a bad thing, but then they also objectify that main female character by having her twerk and hook up with random men, because female empowerment. The show was a mess that had no idea what it wanted to be, felt like it had no plan, and it contradicted its own message. Number 8, Ms.Marvel. Now, up to this point, all the other MCU shows like WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, and Loki felt like they were long, big-budget movies, and this one feels more like a show, and it feels more like a Disney Channel show. The writing is definitely geared more towards a younger audience. The majority of the episodes felt very low stakes, and I didn't really know why I should care about the characters in the show until almost the end. The show had potential, but the way the story was told needed to be rearranged so that the stakes are established earlier. Number 7, The Santa Clauses. I thought this was a fun miniseries. It was fun to return to the world of the Santa Claus movies and see Tim Allen as Santa again. I thought it had a nice message, but the overall plot of the show was very contrived. It seems like the writers just kept making up new clauses in the contract and new rules as to what being Santa means, just so they could make this show and profit off of the nostalgia. It had some good jokes, had some fun ideas, like there being this realm of all the past Santas, including a Krampus, but it was kind of contrived, and the last episode felt very rushed. Number 6, Lord of the Rings of Power. Now, unlike the majority of the people I've seen, I didn't hate this show. I thought a new story set in Middle-earth with new characters was a fun idea. I thought the character was pretty interesting. I thought it had some good plot twists. I thought it had some good action. But it did have the same problem as the Star Wars Solo movie and Captain Marvel. It gave backstory and answers to questions nobody was wondering about. For example, there's an episode where they spend a lot of time explaining about the backstory of Mithril, which is somebody's armor, and they spend like 5 minutes talking about this. So while it does have good world building and ways of expanding the lore, at times it felt a bit shoehorned in. But there was definitely a lot of passion put into it. I enjoyed it, and I'm excited to see where it goes in Season 2. Number 5, Star Wars Andor. I enjoyed that this had a very different tone than the other Star Wars shows. It was definitely grittier and more mature. Andor was written in an interesting way by making him someone who wasn't necessarily a good person, and yet you still kind of root for him. It has good mystery and intrigue, but it was all over the place, and the pacing seemed more fit for a novel than a show. Like in the first episode, Andor is looking for his sister, and then he accidentally kills someone and has to go on the run. And then he spends a couple of episodes forming a rebellion, and then the next few episodes are a flashback of him in prison trying to break out. And only one of those plot lines was resolved. And then there were also a ton of side plot lines about Mon Mothma, Luthen, the Empire, and a bunch of other side characters, and it became a lot to keep track of. So as a result, the show seemed very unfocused. It's a good Star Wars project, but it didn't seem like it could stay on target. Number 4, Halo. Now, I don't know what the die-hard fans of the game think of the show, but for me, who looked at the show purely as a show, not connected to the game in any way, I thought it was really good. The world building and characters were interesting, and you could definitely tell this was a show with a very high budget. The plot had some good twists, and I thought the world of Halo was fun to explore, but it was also a bit unfocused. The first episode sets up a character you think is going to be like this show's equivalent of Grogu, and all the villains are going to be hunting her, and Master Chief, like the Mandalorian, is going to protect her. Nope, she's gone after like 3 episodes, and the writers didn't really know what to do with her, so she doesn't really factor into the plot or do that much until almost the end of the show. And there's also this really weird out-of-nowhere romance towards the end with Master Chief and one of the villains, and though that villain does end up getting a redemption arc, it didn't seem like they were building up to this romance at all. And for a show that's based on a first-person shooter game, there's not really a lot of action. However, it does make up for it with interesting dialogue and world building. I still had fun with the show, I'd still recommend it, but hopefully Season 2 has more action and a story with a clearer focus. Number 3, Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi. One of the best Star Wars projects in recent years. I enjoyed the dynamic between Kenobi and young Leia. I thought the way it expanded the backstory was interesting. The villains in it were ruthless and had a good arc. I really loved seeing Obi-Wan and Vader rematch. Number 2, Star Wars The Book of Boba Fett. The show took Boba Fett, who didn't really do that much in the original trilogy, and made him an actual character. I enjoyed how he has power, but he isn't abusing it. And yeah, he's still hanging out with the seedy crowd, but he isn't really a villain. And I really enjoyed the action, the new characters, and I loved seeing Cad Bane in live action, which is something I never thought would happen. And getting to see Boba and Bane finally get the long-promised duel. But it seemed like Boba Fett wasn't really the focus of his own show. About halfway through, the main narrative is interrupted, so we get what is essentially the first episode of Season 3 of The Mandalorian. And while I really enjoyed that episode, it's causing Star Wars to have the same problem as the MCU, where instead of focusing on the story currently being told, we have to spend a lot of time setting up future stories, future shows. And while I do like these shows all feel important and connected, the ways they connect can get very distracting and jarring. And coming in at number 1 is the best 2022 show that I watched is Moon Knight. This is not only the best show of 2022, it's one of the best MCU projects in recent years. And the main reasons for that are that it feels very much standalone, with very few references to other MCU projects, making it feel more focused on the present story and main character. For the most part, the action is very street level and smaller scale. The mythology surrounding the main character is really interesting. The show isn't afraid to go in very dark directions and play with the audience's mind. Oscar Isaac gives a flawless performance playing the different personalities of the main character. Ethan Hawke's character is one of the most interesting and evil villains we've gotten in the MCU. The female lead character has a good dynamic with Isaac, and all the payoff at the end feels earned. It feels like Marvel broke the traditional MCU formula, took some big risks, and they paid off. I applaud them for stepping outside their comfort zone, taking risks, going darker than they typically do, and being experimental. For me, it paid off. I thought it was fantastic. I'm crossing my fingers that we get a season 2. So that's why Moon Knight comes in at number 1 as the best show of 2022 that I saw. Go and share a ranking of all the 2022 shows that you saw, and I will see you next time.